We come today to Genesis 1 and 1 and the creation story. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. What a profound and majestic statement that is. This is the very doorway into the Bible, the creation story. And as we had said earlier, you will find that in the book of Genesis, where you'll see for the first time there are a number of things referenced the first time. The creation of, the word create is actually used 3 times in the first chapter. And when you say in the beginning, well, when was the beginning? Man has not been able to date the beginning. There is no, you can't pinpoint, you can't make science make sense of a date as far as the beginning. It could have been 100 million years ago, a billion years ago. Man has been unable to date it. But we do know that creation is from the original form, the word create, bara. It occurs only 3 times. In verse 1, in the beginning, God created heavens and the earth. And then it's used again in verse 21, where it reads, and God created great whales and every living creature, so that's life. So, God created heavens and earth. Then we find here in 21st verse, God created, the great whales. This is the first creation of life. And then in the 27th verse, it's the creation of human life. So God created man in his own image. So we have 3 specific creation points within the first chapter of Genesis, where there's something created from nothing. In the beginning, God created heavens and the earth. Then he created life. Then he created human life. And there's a principle of creation, but we find that during this creation time, there's the principle is there's time, space, force, matter, and motion. And the Spirit of God is the force, and matter being the earth, and time is the beginning, and the space is over the creation, and the motion is where the Spirit of it moved upon the face of the earth. So we find that this majestic statement, that the doorway into the Bible and the creation story is right there. Verse 2, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Now, we do not know the amount of time between verse 1 and verse 2. Verse 1 says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And in verse 2, we don't have any information that leads to whether this was immediately following. Was it 1,000 years? 10,000 years? We do not know. There's some discussion that there is a period of time because based upon there's a prophecy of Isaiah in the 45th chapter, Isaiah 45 and 18, and I'm reading, for thus saith the Lord that created the heavens, God himself that formed the earth and made it, he hath established it. He created it not in vain. He formed it to be inhabited. I am the Lord, and there is none else. So that would lead, if you read that, he created it to be inhabited. It was not, created to be vain. So God doesn't create things and it's a mess. When he created it, this would lead to a discussion that says it was ready to be inhabited. If there's a period of time where over time things happen, there was some type of catastrophe or something happened, we do not know. I'm not prepared to discuss any speculation around what may have happened. But, bottom line is, when we get to verse 2, it says, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Now we come to verse 3. And God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God saw, verse 4, God saw the light that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. That sounds like the configuration of the first 24-hour day. And now what we see here in this particular section, the 6 days of not creating but making, is referred to as making or constructing the earth. I like to call it the earth's configuration. Personally, I come from a computer technology background, and oftentimes you have a computer system and you add a new device and you install it. And once it's installed, then the next step is it has to be configured. Before it can serve its purpose from that it's intended, it would have to be set up or configured. So I'd like to say that in these 6 days, actually it takes place through verse 3 through 31, the constructing or configuring of the earth. One reference in Exodus 20 and 11, it says, in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth. And it didn't say created, it said that he made. In other words, that he made it, didn't say created. So it was already there. He had already called it into existence, but now it has to be configured and constructed. So we'll find here as we go through these particular, and we'll see that the term is said, let there be, where God said. It's the first time that God spoke, and you'll see he said, let there be, and it's used 10 times throughout this book. Let there be, the first time. That means it wasn't there, let there be. And this is important to note, that it's the first time that God spoke. And we're talking about the 6 days of configuring or constructing the earth. And we just went through that first day where he said, let there be light. So we find that out of the 6 days of creation, day 1 was light, where God had said, let there be light. That was day 1. When we pick up at verse 6, day 2, second day, is the air spaces or the firmament, where God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. So that means let there be some space in between the waters. So what God did was he divided. He divided it perpendicular, so there's water above us, and then there's water beneath us. So if you understand the space in between is where we occupy, but there's water above, and then there's water below. There's some parts of the earth where rainfall, you can get up to 200 inches of rain in certain areas in the island space and some of the coastal regions, some of the islands where they get that's a lot of water. If you get 200 inches of rain in a matter of minutes, friends, that's a lot of water above us, and then a lot of water beneath us. But It says, let it divide, let the firmament or the space divide the waters from the waters. God said it. And God made the firmament. He made the space in between. And divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. So there's waters above and waters underneath. And it was so. And God called the firmament, heaven. And the evening and the morning were the second day. So the heavens he's talking about is there's tiers of heaven. You have the where the clouds are and the waters, and then you have the heavens that you considered where the universe, where the stars and the space is called heavens and planets. And then you have the third heaven, the deck where God resides, right? So these heavens we're talking about in the first deck, or the clouds, and where there is water. And so it was called the first firmament heaven. And the evening and the morning, this was the second day. Now we come to day 3. Day 3 is the dry land appears and plant life, beginning at verse number 9. And God said, let the waters upon the heaven, under the heaven, be gathered together in one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas, and God saw that it was good. So we see now that, all the water now that was gathered underneath the firmament, here we said in day 2, he divided the waters. There's water above and the firmament, and then the space, the airspace, and then waters underneath. So now there's all of the waters being divided once again, and we see the appearance of dry land. So this lines right up. There's nothing unscientific about this, because there's numerous accounts and facts relative to this entire earth. Everything top side of the earth once upon a time was completely covered by water. And that's not speculation, that's completely covered by water. So we see here now, God said the appearance of the earth. He said, it's time. He called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas, and God saw that it was good. In verse 11, God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. What's it sound like? God is making some preparation and some configurations here on earth, where he's getting ready to where it can be inhabited by his creation, man. He's getting it ready for man. So the waters divided, the dry land appeared. Now we see plant life, we see herb, we see grass. And the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after its kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the third day. We come to the end of day 3. Here we come to the 4th day of the construction of the earth, where the sun and the moon and the stars actually appear. Verses 14 through 19. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. Remember the firmament of the heaven. He divided the waters, and then he called that heaven, the firmament, the heavens, and the first heaven. And there needs to be some light up there. He said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light upon the earth. Let there be. Divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. Watch this. So we determining how, how to calendars and understand, getting it all ready for man to inhabit. It didn't say he created the sun and the moon at these times. They had already been created. At this time, he's just pulling them all into position so that they will support the earth, because he's getting ready to put man upon them, upon the earth. He said, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven, to give light upon the earth. And so it was so. And God made two great lights. It said he made and not create. The greater light is to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. And he made the stars also. So the sun rules the day, and the moon does a good job of ruling the night. And he set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day. You see the dividing. God does the dividing. If you ever, the question comes up is, what's right or wrong? Well, God says what's right and what's wrong. God does the dividing. He always had. He divided the waters. He divides the light from the darkness, the day from the night. And because it says here that he saw that it was good. And this is the end of the fourth day. Now we come to day 5, friends, starting at verse 20. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. 21, and God created great whales. Remember we said the 3 places where it said God created. This is the second one, verse 21. And God created the great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly, after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. See where it says after his kind. God created every living creature that moveth. This again, you talk about evolution, but where it says God created after his kind, that means in every particular family of any type of fish, from the great whales, every living creature, everything in the whale family that moveth, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good, friends. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful, and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. They have to bring forth. He created all of these, every living creature. This is the first life we have here, animal life and biology. So that says, he created them. Now they need to multiply and bring forth. So we have, for the first time, the creation of life on earth, on planet earth. So everyone after his own kind. And then he said, the evening and the morning was the 5th day. starting at verse 24, and I'm reading. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good, that every creeping thing, the beast, the cattle, beast of the earth, the word is philia. And philia, that means everything within the family of any given species. Not just he made one of, but every, or, for instance, he didn't just make one horse, but everything in the family of the horse. That includes the zebra, the donkey, all of those, every philia. And if you look that up, you see that, every beast, every creeping thing, everything in the family he made thereof. And he saw that it was good. He made them after their own kind. And he saw that it was good. Now God's getting ready to make another creation. And we want to, look into this creation of man, where is the creation. And he's going to be different from everything else that God has created. He's going to be quite the different creation. And to be honest with you, God he's so, he mentioned once, well, who is man that you're so fond of him, that he's a little lower than the angels? And why is God so mindful of man? We talked earlier in the introduction how God's concern, when we start to deal with, after the creation of this man, the amount of emphasis and importance that the scriptures and God's word deals with his creation man, far much so than the creation of the universe. We talked about, we'll talk about for the rest of the book of Genesis after chapter 11 into chapter 12, families and genealogies, and the emphasis that God put. God is concerned with man. He's more concerned about you and I than everything, that the emphasis he put into the planet Earth and its creation. Friends, so God is mindful, and he cares about all of his people. So let's look further into the creation of man. So we have here in the 26th verse, Genesis 1, verse 26. This is still the 6th day of the creation process. And this is the creation of man. And I'm reading now, verse 26. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So we see here that this is written to and for man. Importance and the emphasis on his creation of man is going to be very detailed. So we see here in 27, it says, so God created something from nothing. This is man. It is something new. Man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. This is something new. Right? This is the simple fact of the creation of man. So somebody said, well, how did God make man? Well, the details aren't given in chapter 1, but we're going to see that he's going to tell us exactly how man was created in chapter 2. So the creation of man is the only act of creation that has follow-up details and another chapter where God explains how he did it. Once again, stressing the emphasis upon the creation of man. He said in the image of God, man was created in the image of God. So, may I say to you that, man is like God. The Trinity, which is God the Father and God the Son and God the Holy Ghost. Well, man is physical, spiritual, and mental, if you will. But I don't think that's all of it. There's another piece where man, I believe that man is a personality. He is self-conscious. In other words, one who makes his own decisions. Or he's also a free moral agent. So he is able to make his own decisions, self-conscious, and has to develop his own personality. So we're going to go into further discussions relative to the creation of man and the tremendous authority that God had given man, because he's told that there are certain things that he's supposed to do in the space that God has created for him. So in verse 28, and God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. So there were, we talked about on last time, the certain set of instructions that God gave unto man, and to have dominion over and subdue the earth, and then be fruitful and multiply and replenish. You see, God had introduced the subject of sex and physical intercourse back in the Genesis. Here we see that this is where it's all started, and the beautiful concept around which God intended for it is to reproduce and replenish the earth. And it wasn't designed or created to be made into, some in today's society, some refer to it as, they think they found something new, and they call it some type of art and sexual art, and to be performed in public, and this is nothing but carnal and physical and corrupt thinking, and not the design from which God intended it to be. God there's three ways for bringing life into this world. One is by direct creation, that is from God, where he created Adam. Indirect creation, with the creation of Eve, was created from the rib of Adam. And the third one is that he gave to man to reproduce and replenish and multiply. And carnal man has turned that into something that is less desirable and gives us more heartache and pain than we can imagine. And he said to replenish the earth. So that's interesting, because to replenish, that means that to put it back like it was once before. It was already replenished, and now to replenish means that what was there has either been destroyed, or it would lead you to think that there was some other creature that walked and lived on this earth before man, and that kind of leads into that discussion about being unable to to date and put a time stamp on, from earth and creation. It can't be dated. So, it's interesting that replenish would indicate that something was already here. He said replenish it, and then he said to subdue it. And subduing is the learning and the science of. A reference scripture that would help is in Proverbs 25 verse 2. It says, the glory of God to conceal a matter, but the honor of kings to search it out. In other words, God conceals and things are in this earth that is not visible to the eye, but it's honor of the kings and man to research and get in the laboratory and fill the test tubes and figure it out. The diamonds are concealed down underneath the earth, and it's man's job to get in there and dig and find where it is and bring it forth. Verse 29 reads, and God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which it is the fruit of the tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. So that would indicate that, when it says fruit shall be used for meat, that would indicate that man was his survival would be based upon the fruit, fruit, vegetables, the herbs and fruit thereof. So he didn't become a meat eater until after the flood, which we'll see later on in this book. But and then verse 30, and to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. So a few things just to recap really quick in Genesis chapter 1. That there is a beginning. Everything has a beginning. It's not Big Bang, but there has a beginning. And 32 times the word God is used. And the Bible is written to reveal the spiritual things and unto man. And here we also see that God portrays unity, power, and we see the personality of God in Genesis chapter 1. A couple of things that are made clear also is the order. God being detailed and things that he performed, and they're all in order. And progress was made as far as creation, and promptness as he spoke it, and from day 1, day 2, day 3, up till day 6. And he says, and it ends with the evening and the morning were the sixth day. And God said he saw that it was good, very good.